I think that's my favorite thing about martial arts. Some stuff you're like, oh, I shouldn't laugh at that, but that's funny. Like, is that we were like carnies.
Hello, MMA fans. I am being joined by a very special guest. It is Phoenix Carnevale, and you've seen her do it all from commentating to acting to even fighting. So thank you so much, Phoenix, for being here. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm excited to talk to you.
I know it's 7 p.m. there, but it looks like it's either well lit or like it's a ring light. It might still be sunny in New York, I'm assuming, right? At 7 p.m.
I've got the ring light and I have like a really cute little balcony right to the side of me where I have all my plants and stuff. So I'm just hanging out, got a nice cool breeze and just chilling at home.
That's amazing. It's always nice to have plant presence. I know you've been enjoying your summer. I don't know what you were doing earlier today, but you look super cute. What was the activities?
I actually went to NYU and recorded a podcast about women's self-defense. And it was a really nice group of women, everybody coming from different backgrounds, some from law enforcement, me from martial arts and media. So it was a great conversation that needed to be had. So, I just made myself not look like a gym rat for a day.
That's awesome. And you're always having enlightening conversations. I remember I was listening to one of your podcasts and you said one of the most fulfilling jobs you've had was doing acting, but for the NYPD. So at this point in your career, you've worked in so many different areas, but what's the job that's most fulfilling to you right now?
To be honest, it all, and you will understand this because you create content, it's about storytelling. Stories influence us. I'm a big Foo Fighters fan. Do you know Foo Fighters? So Dave Grohl is an idol of mine. And one thing he said was that people inspire people. So if you're watching a fight and you're seeing somebody train super hard or to see them succeed or watch their career develop, or if you're watching a movie and it's an incredible story and somehow it touches you, or even fitness where you're really changing and enhancing the quality of your life. So I love all of these things, and merging them and intersecting them is really where I want the future of my career to go, because it's quality of life stuff. It's the thing that makes us live better. It's the thing that makes us treat other people better. It's the thing that helps us protect ourselves from danger. So I'd love to merge all of these talents into one thing. And I'm not really sure where that is, but you just got to put it out into the universe.
And it's super cool that with time you've realized that you want to merge all those things. But when you were younger, when you were 5 years old, was there a certain career that you were like, I want to be this when I grow up?
I wanted to be an X-Men, so that's I don't have mutant powers, so that wasn't a realistic thing. But I think always feeling like a sense of adventure has been a big deal for me. I've always wanted to have a sense of adventure, and I originally got into acting and fitness because, again, I really liked filmmaking, not just being in front of the camera, but behind it too. I really like stories. I like storytelling. That's really kind of what I like about fights too. Rocky's my favorite movie of all time. It's the build up to the fight that I like the most, and that's even the training part. The training montage is always the best part of the movie. So I kind of became what I wanted to become, not even realizing it, being in fitness, being in fights, and being in acting. They're really all of those things.
And you've done so many different gigs, from UFC Unfiltered to LFA, and then the Everlast podcast, where I feel like when you're doing a podcast like that kind of on your own, you have more say in what you were doing. And then maybe for UFC Unfiltered, they kind of tell you what topics you want to talk about. So do you have a specific, a favorite job that you've had, or one that just like really meant a lot to you in the moment?
I think my favorite out of everything has been the LFA, or working for Access TV, because my boss put it the best way possible, is that we were like carnies. It was like a carnival. We would go to different towns and set up our tent and put on our show and then be done with it. And it was also really amazing to see. And the LFA is kind of a conveyor belt to the UFC and Bellator and one, to watch these athletes become champions and then go on to live their dreams in these bigger promotions. So that was always really cool. And I like working with people. I really like working within a team. It kind of felt like you might be a little young for this reference, but I don't know if you've ever seen the show Cheers. Well, Cheers is like, it's about like all of these different characters in this one bar, and they're all really funny and they banter off each other, So we were like we were like Friends or Cheers. Like we were like a sitcom on the road working these fights. And it was just a really fun gig. And I learned so much from everybody there.
That's so fun. And I'm sure because of your role with LFA, you got more access than you would with like a UFC event. Because you've gone to the UFC events and kind of been part of the media scrum. So how does it differ, like going to those type of events?
Well, because that you're on camera, so I get to write my own copy. I get to do the interviews. I get to do the pre and the post fight stuff. So it's a little bit different because you're literally cage side and working within the commentary teams. And then sometimes we would do different things where I would get to showcase a move with Pat Miletich, which was like an honor. I mean, if you were watching MMA years ago, everybody was a Pat Miletich fan because he was just phenomenal at that time. So it was really an honor to work with guys like him and Ron Kruk and to learn from them. So it was a lot of fun.
And you've gotten to work with people like Bas Rutten too, who I
Mm-hmm.
I saw from the video that you guys both have asthma and that you've been able to kind
Yeah.
of use that as your motivation in your fitness videos too. So how special is it that you not only got to build a connection with him, but also use it as like a inspiration for people who also struggle with gaining confidence to go to the gym?
I think that's my favorite thing about martial arts. So often when I talk to people, they're like, "Oh, how do you watch that stuff? It's like so violent." And I'm like, "It is," and I completely get their point of view. But a lot of these stories are really inspirational, and especially when it comes to like health and fitness. I mean, you look at somebody like Khalil Roundtree, who was overweight, and what he's overcome. And there's a lot of really inspirational stories that come from working with athletes, as you know, and you interview them. They're so interesting. I think I dated a guy once. He was kind of a jerk. This was several years ago. And I was telling him this story, like a backstory about this. And I watch a lot of documentaries, like a lot of documentaries. And he was like, "You're like such a fan of people." Just kind of saying it, that I get so enamored by hearing these stories about people. He meant it as an insult. And I'm like, that's a compliment. It's because I find people interesting.
Yeah.
I go to a party and I will talk to somebody and just find out all about their lives and like find them interesting. So you really can find and learn great things from people who you think are totally different than you, and then it turns out they're not. Or if they are totally different than you, even if you don't agree with them, you find out about a whole nother side of life that you didn't know about.
Yeah, that aspect and getting personal with people is definitely so motivating, but it's a nonstop thing with MMA. It's not like you have basketball season, you have baseball season, you get off season, it's constantly going. So
Yeah.
any other moments where you're kind of like, I need to step away, I need to figure out a way to prevent this burnout from happening?
Yes, I think we all go through it. And I think sometimes you have to choose your battles. And you understand this because you're in the media. And especially as a woman, you never want to not be able to answer a question because you don't want people questioning your integrity. So sometimes we're afraid to miss a show. You're afraid to miss something because you're like, "Oh my God, if I miss it, then I'm not going to know, or I'm going to fall behind." We really feel like that in the media. I mean, I'm sure the guys feel like this too. You miss an event and you completely fall behind, but you have to allow yourself to take breaks and say, "Okay, this is the one that I'm going to watch a couple days from now and like take a few notes, or these are the really important moments to take note of. And if I don't know, I'll just go look it up later on." I think it's very hard for, especially now that there's so many different promotions.
Yeah.
A lot of us in the media feel really burned out, especially when boxing started to peak again. And I'm like, "Oh, boxing was my first love. And now I've got to follow boxing and MMA again." I think we all felt like that.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of anxiety with not knowing every single thing that's going on. I do listen to a lot of co-main event podcasts, and Ben
Mm-hmm.
Folds is super open about it. He's just like, I'm not going to watch this live. I'm going to enjoy my Saturday with my kids and watch it on
Yeah.
Saturday, stay off Twitter. And I'm like, good for you. Like, if you're not writing an article right after, like maybe don't put so much stress, but it also is like, MMA Twitter is such a big community. Like you want to kind of be actively participating with them. So
It's fun as hell, actually.
oh my gosh, it's a
Some of
lot.
the best wisecracks. Some stuff you're like, "Oh, I shouldn't laugh at that, but that's funny." Like it's a good time. I think I only have Twitter for fight nights. I don't use Twitter for anything else.
Yeah, it's just to participate in that. But since you've seen MMA go from literally being illegal into what it
Yeah.
is now, and it hasn't really been monetized and it hasn't been super profitable. Even the MMA shows I told you beforehand, like I recently got laid off. It wasn't just
Yeah.
you got laid off, it was the whole MMA department, even soccer too. I think the only two that stayed were basketball and football, you know, the main sports that the American, I guess, fans are really big on. So was there ever a point in your broadcast career where you were like, maybe I shouldn't stick with just MMA? I should maybe try different sports? Or was that your moment of kind of like, oh, I'll just do a little bit more fitness and acting to kind of balance it out?
It's kind of that. It's like, I am lucky to have a lot of different talents that I can pull from because, you know, this business, there's like 5 jobs and you have to wait for someone to die or get fired because there's 5 jobs and there's probably 3 jobs for women, you know? So it's really difficult. So I think creating your own thing, having other sources of income, and knowing where you can play, which is tough because we hustle many, many different things. I enjoy all of the things that I do. I mean, even when I was with the LFA, I would take acting gigs if it was on schedule where a week we had off, or like I knew it was going to be one day or whatnot, just because I enjoy it so much and it's such a fun skill to have. Like I did a Philadelphia cream cheese commercial. I did a constipation commercial.
I know, I saw that
my
one.
favorite one. It's hilarious.
Oh my God, the one where you
things.
get shot in the head, the show though?
Oh yeah, that was a blind spot. Yeah, that was fun. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So was that shooting in LA?
No, a lot of these things shoot in New York. There's in for acting, Atlanta, LA, and New York are where most things film.
Okay, nice. Yeah. Are you still like sending in a lot of the audition tapes? I love how you like just will put your audition tapes up and like let people see what the life of an actor is, because I feel like that's some of the stuff that you don't really see. And I think some of it has changed since COVID. Like now you just send in your tapes.
Yeah, it's a lot more self-tapes than in-person auditions. I miss in-person auditions because then a director directs you, and that actually makes it a lot more fun to see how you could change on the fly. And yeah. I know you did some stand-up and I've done some improv, and a lot of these things just make us better, even on camera, just for MMA or just in life, I think, just to be like a creative artist. And when I do these things, it's for fun. I really just enjoy it. I don't know if it's ever going to go anywhere. I'll do something that's just one line because it's just a fun thing to do. Being on sets, even though they're really long days, it's fascinating to watch how people work. I mean, I got to work with some really amazing actors sometimes, and I watch them and I'm like, oh wow, this is how it gets done. And it's really cool.
Yeah, it's definitely an awesome thing. I think you mentioned that I did stand up. I have not done stand up yet. You might be thinking of Alex Savas from
okay.
Fighting. But now that I'm living in LA and I see all my friends go to like different things and improv things, I'm like, one of these days I'm gonna have a tequila shot and, you know, start firing some jokes. So I feel like I do recommend
improv to everybody. Not even if you're gonna, like Dean Thomas does improv. He's been in an improv group for years and years now. I think improv helps us not have any preconceived notions about what's going to happen and just makes you think on the fly. It's super fun and it's really funny and it's really silly. And I highly recommend it to everybody.
Yeah, I mean, you got to do it. Like there's so many moments when I'm like looking through Karen Bryant's interviews with people like Rampage or different things, like you're improvising at that point. You don't know what anyone's going to say.
Totally. 100%.
And just as being a female in this industry, I've felt like the different things where you like go to an event and then someone will be like, oh, are you looking for the ring girl section and different things like that? And how do you, I know there's like obvious answers to this, but what would be your biggest piece of advice on like just owning and wanting the respect in this space?
I don't take the aggro bitchy reaction to it, even though like I feel that in my heart, like I get mad. I realize that where it comes from is that there's not enough women in production. So when they see me, that's the only roles they basically see us in. So instead of being like, no, I'm not the freaking ring girl and getting all mad, I'm like, no, I'm actually this, I'm actually that. And they're like, oh, really? And then like this kind of opens dialogue for men or women to think differently in general about women in production spaces in general. that we can be editors, we can be audio technicians, we can be like all of these things. So I take a really calm approach to it, because it's happened, like security won't let me in and or something, and I'm like, I work here,
Yeah.
you know. And then that's happened like plenty of times, and I've learned not to get offended. I just know that the world has to shift and change, and it truly is. I've had so many great experiences with men in the industry not asking anything of me, just being supportive because they just think you're good, and that's a big part of it. So I take that approach. I remember one guy in an elevator, when he thought I was one of the ring girls, like, "Oh, you probably hate the ring girls." I'm like, "Why would I hate the ring girls?" Especially the LFA ring girls, they were like the coolest. So we would be on the beach together, you know, earlier in the day because we had to work at night. So we would like hang out or go to lunch or whatever. Like, I love the ring girls. That's their job. This is my job. Like, what? Who cares? You know? And I would never say anything. Like, I was upset actually when Rhonda said something about Ariane Celeste, and I'm like, no, we're supposed to like support each other. If she wants to be a hot model, like, good for her. She's gorgeous, you know. Like, I don't really like that. So
Yeah.
I think that when it happens to us, you have to kind of take that approach, like educating people too. Like, no, actually, I do this, and you'll be surprised. Like, guys are so cool now when we go to a fight night party or something, like, Phoenix, what do you think? Because I didn't turn them away or get insulted. And, you know, it is kind of insulting, but you got to realize, like, that's all they've seen for how many years.
Exactly.
So that's been really helpful, and it's actually made more friends than enemies.
Yeah. And I remember Layla Anley was doing a Ask Me Anything question, and it's someone asked her, like, would you ever have an OnlyFans? And she just said, like, no, I would never have an OnlyFans, not because there's anything wrong with that, but just because it's a real career. Like, you have to be making a certain amount of posts a day and different things like that. And it's just like respect everywhere, but definitely when there are those moments of like someone not letting you in or not thinking you're credentialed, it's like a little frustrating. Like, I'm gonna be commentating for this. You know,
Yes.
like if you're a little bit younger or the girl coming in, it's just like, don't, you know, doubt.
Oh, they assume that you don't know like anything, but I enjoy proving you wrong. Like, I enjoy, especially when I'm doing it in a nice way. I'm like, oh my God, you know, like if you ever tap a guy out, you're like, you know what I mean? Like, I enjoy a lot of that. And because I have, quote unquote, a very male dominated interests, I'm into comic books and superheroes and kung fu movies and, you know, all of this stuff, and fighting and fitness and all this stuff is like considered masculine. So it's actually fun. Guys actually enjoy talking to me about a lot of these things.
Yeah, it's obviously everything kind of goes in with each other with your interest that I guess started off with boxing before you got more into Muay Thai and even competed. I think one of your most recent gigs was with Showtime Boxing. So how cool is it when you get those calls like that? And is it one of those things where it's like a freelance gig and then you negotiate, you know, what you expect for that and what your duties are going to be? Or do they kind of come to you with like a certain plan and you just say yes or no to it?
So the thing is, and this is really good to talk about, especially for people like coming up in the business, there are gigs that are smaller gigs that you can negotiate by yourself if you want to. Mm-hmm. And there are gigs that are big like that where you're going to call your agent because you kind of don't know, like, what can they afford to do and what can they give me and what are the stipulations of this gig. So for something as big as Showtime, I'll call my agent and say, hey, can you take a look at this for me? And you can negotiate this contract for me. And also put somebody else in the middle so that you're not the bad guy, like asking for certain things. When I haven't used my agent for things, sometimes it's actually hurt me because I would undercut myself or not realize where this promotion was going. And then, you know, there's smaller gigs that, you know, they're local and they're regional. And you're like, okay, like I can kind of negotiate this myself and kind of take it from there. And if you don't have an agent and you get a big gig, that's when you call an agency and say, hey, I have this. Will you negotiate this for me, with me? And they might work with you one time and then take their cut, which can be anywhere from 10 to 20%, depending on the agency. And they'll do that with you. Or, you know, and then maybe you have a relationship with this agent now going forward because they see that you're the type of person that books work.
Okay. And then when you say agent, did you initially get an agent for acting, or do they kind of specify with like sports journalism, or kind of they do anything?
I have agents for different things. I have a manager who deals with my acting and on camera career. I have an agent that works with my hosting career. And then you'll have different things. But for on camera hosts and things like that, there are agencies that will work with you that specialize in those type of things. I have a different agency that books me out for public speaking. You know, you pitch yourself, or sometimes it just happens they know who you are and they contact you and are you working with anyone, and then that's how you make it work. But it's a very confusing world and it's really hard to navigate.
Yeah, it's super hard to navigate. And I feel like you've gotten to see it transition from this whole TV broadcast look and more into digital. So from that
Mm-hmm.
perspective, what do you like about that? And what are some things that you have changed about your strategy with things? Because how have you kind of adapted to this whole like digital, metaverse that's happening now instead of like the broadcast TV lifestyle that it used to be?
I think you have to know both worlds. I obviously like live TV way better because of the environment and energy, you know. But what's so cool about digital is that you and I can connect right here, right now. And, you know, you can do a lot of things on your own. It's a lot of work on your own, but you can do a lot of things on your own. So the best thing to do is to learn all of the different spaces, because that's the way it's going. If you're just thinking one way, you're going to wind up becoming a dinosaur in this industry. You can't be adverse to the changes that are happening. You learn to go with it, and you deal, like what Bruce Lee says, take what is useful and discard what is not, and figure out like, okay, if this is digital space, like what are the things that I can do that are helpful for me? What are the things that I can do in this space that are draining? Because you know that like everybody wants to do this, everyone wants to do that, and is it going to help you or hurt you? And that's how you navigate the space.
Very cool. And just every time I listen to you on different podcasts, you always bring a different angle of like nutrition, science, and different things about that. So what are your top 3 podcasts you listen to that you think would be helpful for someone that's coming up in the MMA industry?
So science wise, I really like Huberman Labs.
Yes.
His name is Andrew Huberman. I really, really like him. I'm an absolute nerd, so I'm a big fan of Neil deGrasse Tyson. I think that just kind of understanding the universe in which we live and understanding the value of our planet is really important and crucial. And a big part of martial arts is Taoism, is connecting to the planet, to your environment, to your own body. All of these things are important. And then like a third one, what's the third one that I listen to? I don't know. I really like comedy, so I'll listen to some comedians every once in a while. Bill Burr's pretty funny. Yeah, yeah, stuff like that.
Thanks. I'm gonna have to link them in the YouTube bio, but also tell me anything that's coming up for you that you've been working on, any special projects, and where we can find them.
Well, I am working with a kickboxing association right now that's putting on more events, and we're supposed to travel to Brazil really soon.
K1?
I am, yeah, it's K1.
Cool.
And so that's happening. That one's pretty cool. And then I just worked with Regan Urso of One FC. That was great. He's amazing. And then I'm trying to put some more stuff together that does merge martial arts and fitness. So hopefully I'll have an answer to you with that coming up. And in the process, I'm just open like you. I'm freelancing and looking for really cool projects to jump on.
That's awesome. Well, I cannot wait to see whatever is next for you. And I hope that we get to like team up and tag team some type of event or something fun, because I think the MMA fans will like that. We need some girl
I
power.
think so too. I think so too. There's not enough of that.